Welcome to Africarized YouTube channel, where we discuss African history, civilization, Black history, and everything related to Africa. Subscribe to our channel, like, share, and share your thoughts in the comments. I bet you didn't know Africa is the cradle of civilization. Africa, a land of ancient mysteries and untold stories. A continent that has witnessed the birth of life in its most primal form. A continent teeming with life. From the majestic elephants roaming the savannas to the vibrant birds of the rainforest, Africa is a living tapestry of biodiversity. A land of diverse landscapes, from lush rainforests to sprawling savannas. Each ecosystem, a world unto itself, brimming with unique flora and fauna. But Africa holds a secret, a story etched in the very bones of the earth, a tale that stretches back millions of years to the dawn of humanity itself. It is a story of beginnings, of the very first chapters of human existence. As the sun rises over the African landscape, it illuminates the cradle of our species. Africa, my friends, is the cradle of civilization, the birthplace of our ancestors, where the seeds of human life were first sown. This is where it all began. In the heart of Africa, amidst its ancient landscapes and heritage sites, the story of humanity took its first steps. Millions of years ago, the first hominids, our ancient ancestors, took their first tentative steps on this very soil. Their footprints, preserved in the earth, tell a story of survival and adaptation. Here, in this crucible of life, the seeds of humanity were sown. The rich African soil nurtured the early hominids, providing them with the resources they needed to thrive. The story of our species, of our shared past, begins in the heart of Africa. From the bustling villages to the vast wilderness, every corner of this continent holds a piece of our history. The evidence is all around us. In the archaeological dig sites and fossil excavations, we find the remnants of our ancestors preserved for millennia. Fossils, unearthed from the African soil, whisper tales of creatures long gone. These ancient bones are the keys to understanding our evolutionary journey. These remnants of a distant past paint a vivid picture of our evolutionary journey. From the earliest hominids to the rise of Homo sapiens, each fossil is a chapter in the story of life. From the very first hominids to the emergence of Homo sapiens, Africa has borne witness to the extraordinary saga of human evolution. The landscapes and artifacts tell a story of innovation and survival. Join me now as we embark on a captivating journey through time. Let us explore the rich tapestry of Africa's past and uncover the secrets of our shared heritage. Let us delve into the depths of Africa's past and uncover the secrets of our shared heritage. From ancient ruins to historical artifacts, every discovery brings us closer to understanding our origins. This is a story of origins, of innovation, and of the enduring legacy of Africa as the cradle of civilization, a legacy that continues to shape our world today. Imagine a world very different from our own. A world where vast grasslands stretched as far as the eye could see, home to creatures both familiar and strange. This was the world of the early hominids, our distant ancestors. These pioneers of humanity were on a remarkable journey, a journey of adaptation and evolution. They faced challenges we can only imagine. Predators stalked their every move. The elements tested their resilience. But these early hominids possessed a secret weapon, the power of adaptation. They learned to walk upright, freeing their hands to use tools. They developed complex social structures, working together to survive, and slowly, over countless generations, they began to shape their world. The fossil record tells their story. From the robust Paranthropus to the slender Australopithecus, each fossil discovery adds a new piece to the puzzle of our past. These were not just bones, but snapshots of lives lived, of struggles overcome, of triumphs achieved. The story of human evolution is a long and complex one, a tale with many chapters. But there is one chapter that stands out, a chapter that marks a turning point in our history. This is the chapter of Homo sapiens, our own species. Emerging in Africa around 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens possessed a unique combination of traits. They had larger brains, capable of complex thought and problem-solving. They were masters of tool-making, crafting sophisticated implements from stone, bone, and wood. But perhaps their greatest asset was their capacity for language. With language, Homo sapiens could share ideas, pass down knowledge, and cooperate on a scale never seen before. They created art, adorning cave walls with breathtaking paintings. They developed rituals, burying their dead with care and respect. These were the hallmarks of a species on the cusp of greatness, a species destined to spread across the globe and leave an indelible mark on the planet. And it all began in the cradle of humanity, Africa. Section 4 out of Africa, A Human Odyssey. Africa, the birthplace of our species, was about to witness a remarkable event, an event that would shape the destiny of humankind. This vast and diverse continent, with its rich landscapes and abundant resources, provided the perfect cradle for the early development of Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens, driven by a thirst for exploration and a need for resources, began to migrate. This migration was not a single event, but a series of movements over thousands of years, each wave of migration pushing the boundaries of human endurance and adaptability. This was no ordinary journey. It was a monumental trek that required immense courage and determination. Families and communities banded together, sharing knowledge and resources to survive the harsh conditions they encountered. It was an odyssey of epic proportions, a testament to the resilience and adaptability of our species. They crossed scorching deserts, navigated treacherous seas, and traversed icy landscapes. Each step forward was a leap into the unknown, driven by the hope of finding new lands and opportunities. Their journey took them to every corner of the globe, from the dense forests of Southeast Asia to the vast plains of Australia. They adapted to different climates and terrains, showcasing the incredible versatility of the human spirit. From the fertile valleys of Europe, where they found rich soil and abundant wildlife, to the rugged mountains of Asia, where they faced harsh winters and steep terrains, and finally to the Americas, a land of diverse ecosystems and untold challenges. Along the way, they encountered other hominid species, like the Neanderthals, who had already adapted to the European environment. These encounters were significant, leading to both conflict and cooperation, with whom they interacted and sometimes interbred. These interactions enrich the genetic diversity of our species, contributing to the complex tapestry of human evolution. This out-of-Africa migration is a cornerstone of human history. It marks the beginning of our global journey, a journey that has led to the incredible diversity of cultures and societies we see today. It speaks to our shared heritage, a reminder that despite our differences, we all share a common origin. A reminder that we all trace our ancestry back to a single population that originated in Africa. This shared ancestry is a testament to the unity of the human race. It is a story of adventure, of survival, and of the relentless pursuit of new horizons, and of the indomitable spirit of exploration that lies at the heart of our species. This spirit continues to drive us forward, pushing the boundaries of what is possible and inspiring future generations to embark on their own odysseys. Section 5, Life Along the Nile, A River's Gift. As Homo sapiens ventured out of Africa, they carried with them the seeds of civilization, and nowhere did these seeds take root more firmly than along the banks of the mighty Nile River. The Nile, a lifeline snaking its way through the African continent, provided everything early civilizations needed to thrive. Its annual floods deposited fertile silt on the surrounding land, making it ideal for agriculture. The river itself was a highway, facilitating trade and communication. It was along the Nile that one of the world's first civilizations, ancient Egypt, would emerge. The river's bounty allowed for a surplus of food, freeing people to specialize in other trades and crafts. Villages grew into towns and towns into cities, bustling with activity. The Nile, more than just a river, was a cradle of innovation. It nurtured the development of writing, mathematics, astronomy, and architecture. It was a source of life, a wellspring of inspiration, and the lifeblood of one of history's most enduring civilizations. Section 6, The Majesty of Ancient Egypt. From the fertile banks of the Nile rose a civilization like no other, a civilization that harnessed the life-giving waters of the river to create a thriving society. This was ancient Egypt, a civilization that would captivate the world for millennia with its grandeur and mystery. This was a land of pharaohs and pyramids, of hieroglyphs and gods, of splendor and innovation. The pharaohs, considered gods on earth, ruled with absolute power and divine authority. The ancient Egyptians were masters of engineering, creating architectural marvels that have stood the test of time, constructing colossal monuments that still inspire awe today. They demonstrated unparalleled skill and ingenuity. The pyramids, towering over the desert sands, were not just tombs for their pharaohs, but also symbols of their architectural prowess and spiritual beliefs. These grand structures served as eternal resting places for their rulers, filled with treasures and artifacts meant to accompany them in the afterlife. The intricate carvings and detailed artwork inside the pyramids are testaments to their artistic and architectural brilliance. But ancient Egypt was more than just grand monuments. It was a vibrant society with bustling markets, skilled artisans, and a rich cultural heritage. It was a society with a rich culture, a complex belief system, and a pantheon of gods and goddesses who influenced every aspect of daily life. The ancient Egyptians had a thirst for knowledge, making significant advancements in various fields. They developed a system of writing, hieroglyphics, that not only recorded their history, but also unlocked the secrets of their past for future generations. The discovery of the Rosetta Stone was pivotal in deciphering these ancient texts, providing a window into their world. They made significant advancements in mathematics, developing concepts that would lay the foundation for future civilizations. Their contributions to astronomy and medicine were equally impressive, showcasing their deep understanding of the natural world. Ancient Egypt was a beacon of civilization, its influence radiating outwards, impacting cultures across Africa and beyond. Their trade networks and diplomatic relations extended far and wide. The legacy of ancient Egypt can be seen in the art, architecture, and cultural practices of many neighboring regions. It was a testament to human ingenuity, a civilization that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Ancient Egypt offers us a glimpse into a world both familiar and utterly alien, a society that was advanced yet deeply rooted in its traditions. It stands as a reminder of the enduring power of the human spirit, a civilization that continues to inspire and fascinate us to this day. Hey everyone, welcome to an exciting journey through Africa's maritime history. We often think of Africa as a place with vast grasslands teeming with wildlife and the iconic pyramids of Giza standing tall against the desert backdrop. These images are indeed captivating and form a significant part of Africa's identity. But guess what? There's a lesser-known yet equally fascinating side to Africa's history. It has a secret history, a history of awesome sailors who navigated the vast waters, busy trade routes that connected distant lands, and cool cultures mixing all around the Mediterranean Sea and beyond. This maritime legacy is a testament to Africa's ingenuity and its pivotal role in ancient global trade. From the Egyptians sailing long ago on the mighty Nile to the bustling ports of the Swahili coast, Africa's connection to the sea has been super important in shaping the ancient world. These waterways were the lifelines of commerce and cultural exchange, influencing the development of civilizations far and wide. In this video, we'll dive deep into Africa's seafaring adventures, checking out how it affected trade, who had power, and how different cultures like the Phoenicians, Greeks, and Romans mixed together. We'll explore the stories of brave sailors who ventured into the unknown, the bustling markets that thrived on maritime trade, and the powerful empires that rose and fell with the tides. It's a story about clever people and their amazing skills at sea, and it shows how important Africa was in the history of seafaring around the world. So let's set sail on this incredible voyage through time and discover the maritime marvels of Africa. Let's get started. The Nile River, like the heart of Egypt, was super important for trade and travel in ancient Africa. The Egyptians were great at building boats and sailing, and they used the Nile to become a strong seafaring force. Their cool wooden boats, powered by sails and oars, traveled up and down the Nile, carrying stuff and people all over. The Nile connected Egypt to other African civilizations further south, like the Kingdom of Kush, which had tons of gold and ivory. Egyptian ships even went into the Mediterranean Sea, trading with faraway lands. This helped different cultures learn from each other, bringing new ideas, tools, and goods to Egypt. The northern coast of Africa, right next to the Mediterranean Sea, became a place where different cultures and businesses met. Carthage, started by the Phoenicians, became a really powerful seafaring city controlling a lot of the Mediterranean. Their fast and easy-to-steer ships sailed all over, carrying things like cloth, glass, and fancy metals. But wait, there's more. In the hot Sahara Desert, there was another kind of trade happening. The Trans-Saharan trade routes. Camels carried salt, gold, and sadly sometimes even slaves across the desert, connecting the Mediterranean coast to sub-Saharan Africa. These routes helped everyone make money and let different cultures in North and sub-Saharan Africa learn from each other. Carthage started small, but it became a huge seafaring power, even challenging Rome. The Carthaginians, who were great sailors and traders, created a massive trade network across the Mediterranean Sea, and even further, their ships, full of goods from faraway places, sailed to ports all over, making Carthage rich and powerful. But their ships weren't just for trade. They were also super important for their military. Their warships, with strong rams and skilled sailors, ruled the seas, protecting their trade routes and keeping them safe. The Punic Wars, a series of fights between Rome and Carthage, showed just how powerful Carthage's navy really was. Section 5. Clash of Titans, Carthage versus Rome. The Punic Wars were huge fights between Rome and Carthage that changed everything around the Mediterranean. These wars were some of the most significant conflicts of the ancient world, lasting over a century and involving massive armies and fleets. These wars happened because they wanted the same business. They both wanted more power, and their cultures were different. Carthage was a powerful maritime empire with vast trade networks, while Rome was a burgeoning land power with ambitions of expansion. It was the land power of Rome against the sea power of Carthage. Rome's disciplined legions clashed with Carthage's formidable navy, leading to epic battles both on land and at sea. In the First Punic War, Rome, which was mostly a land power, challenged Carthage's control of the sea and ended up taking over Sicily. This was a major turning point, as it marked Rome's first significant territorial gain outside the Italian peninsula. The Second Punic War saw Hannibal, the awesome Carthaginian general, cross the Alps with elephants to fight Rome on its own land. This daring move is one of the most famous military maneuvers in history, showcasing Hannibal's strategic genius and determination. Even though Hannibal was a brilliant general, Rome won in the end, and Carthage started to lose power. The Roman Republic's resilience and strategic counterattacks eventually wore down Carthage's forces. The Third Punic War ended with Carthage being completely destroyed, its once mighty ships burned, and its land taken over by the growing Roman Republic. This final conflict ensured Rome's dominance in the Mediterranean and marked the end of Carthage as a major power. Section 6. East Africa, Trading Winds of Change. While Carthage was rising and falling in the Mediterranean, the eastern coast of Africa was building busy trade routes. The monsoon winds, blowing across the Indian Ocean at the same time every year, helped connect East Africa to faraway lands for trade and cultural exchange. The ancient kingdom of Aksum, in what is now Ethiopia and Eritrea, became a big player in the Red Sea trade. Aksum was in a perfect spot between Africa, Arabia, and the Indian Ocean, so it controlled important trade routes. Aksumite ships carrying ivory, gold, and incense sailed across the Red Sea to trade with Egypt, Arabia, and other places. Section 7. The Swahili Coast, a tapestry of cultures. The Swahili coast, stretching along the southeastern coast of Africa, became a vibrant center for trade and cultural exchange. This region, with its strategic location, attracted merchants and traders from various parts of the world. The bustling markets were filled with goods from distant lands, and the culture of the Swahili people was profoundly shaped by these interactions. The constant flow of traders brought new ideas, customs, and traditions. The Swahili people, renowned for their seafaring skills and business acumen, established thriving port cities. These cities became essential hubs in the vast Indian Ocean trade network, connecting Africa to Asia and the Middle East. Cities like Kilwa, Mombasa, and Zanzibar emerged as melting pots of cultures. These urban centers were not just trading posts, but also places where diverse cultures met and mingled, creating a unique cultural tapestry. Merchants and traders from Arabia, Persia, India, and other distant regions brought with them their languages, religions, and customs. This influx of diverse influences enriched the local culture, making it a vibrant and dynamic society. The Swahili language itself is a testament to this cultural blend. It is primarily a Bantu language, but has incorporated numerous words from Arabic, Persian, and Indian languages, reflecting the diverse interactions over centuries. The Swahili coast, with its rich mix of African, Arab, and Asian influences, stands as a remarkable example of how trade and cultural exchange can transform societies. The legacy of this vibrant region continues to be felt today, showcasing the enduring power of cultural diversity. Section 8. Legacy of exchange knowledge across the waves. Ancient Africa's seafaring wasn't just about trading stuff. It was also about sharing knowledge, ideas, and how different cultures did things. Egyptian ships sailing across the Mediterranean brought new technologies, like better ways to build ships and navigate by the stars to other places. The Trans-Saharan trade routes, mostly used for business, also helped spread religious beliefs, art styles, and farming techniques between North and Sub-Saharan Africa. The Swahili coast, with its mix of people from everywhere, became a place where smart ideas and art were shared, combining African traditions with ideas from Asia and the Middle East. Section 9. Conclusion: Africa's enduring maritime influence. Africa's history with the sea shows how important the continent has always been to seafaring, world trade, sharing different cultures, and spreading knowledge. From the Egyptians sailing on the Nile to the busy ports of the Swahili coast, African civilizations have made a big impact on the history of the sea. It's important to remember Africa's role in shaping how we travel and trade across the oceans. By learning about what ancient African civilizations did at sea, we can better understand how human history is all connected and how sharing different cultures has shaped our world. Empires of Gold, a West African story. Welcome to our trip through the rise of empires in West Africa. Today we'll explore the cool history and big influence of the Ghana, Mali, and Songhai empires, and the important Trans-Saharan trade routes. For hundreds of years, the sands of West Africa have held the secrets of powerful empires. Their rise and fall can still be felt today. These empires, powered by trade, left a big mark on human history. Their legacy is woven into the region's story. Join us as we explore these empires, their amazing cities, lively cultures, and the web of trade that connected them to the world. Ghana, the Gold Empire. Our story starts in the middle of West Africa, in the vast grasslands south of the Sahara Desert, where a strong and influential empire grew. This was the Ghana Empire, a kingdom built on the wealth of gold. The Ghanaians, skilled miners and talented craftsmen, controlled the area's abundant gold resources. This precious metal, highly sought after all over the Mediterranean and beyond, would become the foundation of the Ghana Empire's immense power. From their capital city, Kumbi-Saleh, a bustling trade center, the Ghanaian rulers oversaw a vast and intricate trading network. Camel caravans laden with gold, salt, ivory, and other valuable commodities traversed the harsh Sahara Desert, connecting the empire to North Africa and beyond. The Trans-Saharan trade routes, perilous but highly profitable, became crucial arteries for both culture and commerce. The Ghanaians, astute traders, controlled the gold trade, demanding high prices for their precious metal. This control brought immense wealth and prosperity to the Ghana Empire. The rulers, adorned in gold and luxurious silks, commanded powerful armies and built grand palaces that showcased their authority and influence. Ghana's influence extended far and wide, shaping the political landscape of West Africa. The empire's wealth and formidable army made it incredibly strong, ensuring its dominance for centuries. Ghana's gold not only enriched the empire but also fueled economies far beyond its borders. From bustling North African markets to the treasuries of European royalty, Ghanaian gold was everywhere, a symbol of wealth and power. But even the mightiest empires are not immune to change. Over time, the Ghana Empire, weakened by internal strife and external pressures, began to decline. the rise of a new power, the Almoravids, posed an even greater threat to Ghana's stability. By the 1200s, the once great Ghana Empire had fallen, leaving behind a legacy of wealth and trade. But the story of the Ghana Empire illustrates the transformative power of trade and its profound impact on civilizations. From the depths of the earth, gold emerged, turning a kingdom into a mighty empire and leaving an indelible mark on the history of West Africa. Mali, an empire of great wealth. From the Ghana Empire's remains, a new power arose in West Africa, the Mali Empire. Started by Sundiata Keita, a skilled warrior and great leader, the Mali Empire would become bigger and stronger than Ghana. Mali took over Ghana's gold trade, becoming wealthy and powerful. Under Sundiata and his successors, the empire grew, taking over large parts of West Africa. Mali's success came from controlling the profitable Trans-Saharan trade routes. Cities like Djenné and Timbuktu along these routes became busy trade and culture centers. Mali's markets were full of traders from far away, wanting gold, salt, cola nuts, and enslaved people. The empire became super rich. During the rule of Mansa Musa, one of Mali's most famous rulers, the empire's wealth peaked. Mansa Musa, a good Muslim, went on a famous pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324. His trip, showing his faith and the empire's wealth, became legendary. Mansa Musa's group, stretching for miles, was said to have thousands of soldiers, helpers and slaves, all dressed in fancy clothes. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage amazed everyone. He traveled with tons of gold, giving it away on his trip, leaving a big impression. After returning from Mecca, Mansa Musa kept investing in Mali. He built mosques, libraries and universities, making Timbuktu a famous place for Islamic learning. Mansa Musa's rule was a golden age for Mali. His fair rule, wealth and expanded trade made Mali a major power. The Mali Empire, like Ghana, showed how trade can change societies. From markets to learning centers, Mali's legacy lived on. Chapter 3, Songhai Masters of Trade and Learning. As the Mali Empire weakened, a new power was growing in West Africa, ready to take its place. The Songhai people, living along the Niger River, built an empire that would rival its predecessors, showcasing their resilience and ambition. The Songhai Empire, starting as a small kingdom around Gao, grew steadily, eventually becoming bigger and stronger than Mali, expanding its influence far and wide. Led by strong rulers like Sunni Ali and Askia Muhammad, the Songhai Empire reached its peak, demonstrating exceptional leadership and vision. Sunni Ali, a great military leader, led the Songhai to many victories, conquering important trading cities like Timbuktu and Djenné, which were crucial for the empire's prosperity. His rule started a new era for Songhai, one of military power and expansion, setting the stage for future growth. Askia Muhammad, who took over after Sunni Ali died, strengthened the empire and created a central government, ensuring stability and efficient administration. A devout Muslim, Askia Muhammad brought Islamic law and learning to the empire, integrating religion with governance. Under his rule, Songhai became a center of learning and culture, attracting scholars and intellectuals from various regions. Timbuktu, already a famous trade center, became a major Islamic university city, bringing in scholars and students from all over the Muslim world, enhancing its reputation. The Sankore Madrasa, one of Timbuktu's best learning centers, had many manuscripts on topics like astronomy, math, Islamic law, and literature, making it a beacon of knowledge. Songhai, under Askia Muhammad, became a place of knowledge where scholars thrived and new ideas flourished. Songhai's control of the Trans-Saharan trade routes was important for its wealth, facilitating extensive trade networks. The empire's merchants traded gold, salt, cola nuts, enslaved people, and other valuable things with North Africa, the Middle East and beyond, creating a vibrant economy. This trade, carried by camel groups across the Sahara, made Songhai very rich, paying for its growth, government and culture, and ensuring its prosperity. But even the strongest empires can have problems, and Songhai was no exception. Songhai, weakened by internal fighting and facing threats from Moroccans with gunpowder, eventually fell, marking the end of an era. Even though it fell, the Songhai Empire left a lasting impact, with its legacy enduring through the ages. Its support of learning and trade made it a major force in West African history, influencing generations to come. Chapter 4. The Trans-Saharan Lifeline, Connecting Cultures and Continents. The rise and fall of the West African empires were intricately tied to the Trans-Saharan trade routes, ancient paths that spanned the vast Sahara Desert, connecting the Mediterranean world to the heart of Africa. These routes, like lifelines across the endless sand, were more than just trade paths. They were bridges between diverse cultures, sharing ideas, beliefs, and traditions across long distances and through generations. For centuries, camel caravans, led by Berber nomads who knew the desert intimately, traveled these routes with remarkable skill and resilience. Their journeys were perilous, fraught with dangers from the harsh environment, but they offered the promise of immense riches and rewards. Camels, perfectly adapted for the desert, were essential for this trade, carrying valuable goods like gold, salt, and other commodities across the vast expanse of the Sahara. The trade routes, dotted with oases that provided much-needed rest and respite, became vibrant places where cultures mixed and mingled. Merchants from North Africa, the Middle East, and Sub-Saharan Africa met at these bustling trading posts, exchanging not only goods but also languages, customs, and innovative ideas. Islam, brought by Arab traders, spread across West Africa, profoundly influencing the culture, religion, and societal structures of the empires. The Trans-Saharan trade was a crucial factor in the growth of the West African empires, connecting them to the wider world and making them wealthy through the trade of gold, salt, enslaved people, and other valuable items. The insatiable demand for gold drove much of this trade, fueling the economies of these empires. The West African empires, controlling rich gold mines, became pivotal players in this trade network, their fortunes rising and falling with the fluctuating price of gold. However, the Trans-Saharan trade had a dark and tragic side. The enslavement of Africans became an integral part of this trade, with millions of people forced into captivity and taken across the harsh desert. Despite these grave issues, the trade routes across the Sahara remained vital for commerce and cultural exchange for centuries, profoundly shaping the history and development of West Africa. As the sun sets on the vast Sahara, we remember the Trans-Saharan trade routes, a testament to human endurance, ingenuity, and the interconnectedness of our world. Outro echoes in the sand. Thanks for joining us on this trip through the rise of West African empires. From Ghana to Timbuktu, we've seen empires rise and fall, the power of trade and the impact of cultural exchange. The legacy of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai shows the cleverness, strength, and culture of the West African people. Their stories remind us that our world is connected. Like, share, and subscribe for more cool history videos. For hundreds of years, the Indian Ocean was a really busy place. It was more than just a body of water. It was a vibrant hub of activity, teeming with life and energy. The ocean served as a vast highway, connecting distant lands and diverse cultures. It wasn't just water, it was like a big meeting place for people from all over. Traders, explorers, and adventurers from various corners of the world converged here, bringing with them not only goods but also stories, traditions, and innovations. Merchants sailed across it, bringing goods and new ideas. Spices from the East, textiles from India, and gold from Africa were just a few of the treasures exchanged. These interactions fostered a rich tapestry of cultural exchange and mutual influence. The Indian Ocean connected the East and the West. It was a crucial link in the chain of global trade, facilitating the movement of goods, people, and ideas between continents. It linked Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. This vast network of trade routes created a melting pot of cultures where languages, religions, and customs intermingled and evolved. Sharing goods and ideas changed the people living around the Indian Ocean. The exchange of knowledge and traditions led to advancements in science, art, and technology, enriching the lives of those who participated in this dynamic network. It helped trade grow, cultures mix, and new religions spread. The Indian Ocean was a conduit for the spread of major religions like Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism, which left a lasting impact on the regions they touched. The east coast of Africa was super important in this network. Coastal cities like Kilwa, Mombasa and Zanzibar became bustling centers of trade and cultural exchange, attracting merchants and scholars from far and wide. From busy cities to powerful empires inland, East Africa was a key part of the Indian Ocean trade. The wealth generated from trade helped build powerful states and empires such as the Swahili city-states and the Kingdom of Zimbabwe. This video will explore how East Africa was part of this ancient trade network and how it changed the region's culture, economy and society. Join us as we delve into the fascinating history of the Indian Ocean trade and its enduring legacy on East Africa. The East African coast, stretching from Somalia down to Mozambique, was dotted with a series of vibrant and bustling cities. These cities were not just random settlements, but were intricately connected, forming what is known as the Swahili coast. This region was a melting pot of cultures, where African, Arab and Asian influences blended seamlessly. The Swahili people who inhabited these cities were a unique mix of these diverse cultures, creating a rich and dynamic society. These cities were all connected and formed the Swahili coast, a network of trading hubs that played a crucial role in the Indian Ocean trade. The Swahili coast was not just a geographical area, but a cultural and economic powerhouse that facilitated trade and cultural exchange across continents. The Swahili people, a mix of African, Arab and Asian people, lived in these coastal cities. They spoke Swahili, a language that itself is a blend of Bantu and Arabic, reflecting the multicultural nature of the region. Their attire, cuisine and architecture also showcased this unique blend of influences. They were great sailors, had a mixed culture and were important in the Indian Ocean trade. The Swahili sailors were renowned for their skills in navigating the treacherous waters of the Indian Ocean, using traditional dhows to transport goods and people across vast distances. Some of the most important cities were Kilwa, Sofala, Mombasa and Malindi. Each of these cities had its own unique charm and significance. Kilwa, for instance, was known for its wealth and grandeur, while Mombasa was a key port city that facilitated trade with distant lands. Each city was special and traded different goods. The markets in these cities were bustling with activity, offering a wide range of goods from gold and ivory to spices and textiles. These goods were highly sought after in markets across the Indian Ocean. These cities were in important spots along the coast. Their strategic locations made them ideal hubs for trade, connecting the interior of Africa with the rest of the world. The Swahili cities were perfectly positioned to take advantage of the monsoon winds, which facilitated maritime trade. They connected the inland parts of Africa to the rest of the Indian Ocean world. Caravans would travel from the interior, bringing valuable goods to the coast, where they would be shipped to distant lands. This made the Swahili cities crucial links in the global trade network. Traders brought things like gold, ivory, and sadly, slaves from inland. These commodities were highly valued in international markets, and the trade in these goods brought immense wealth to the Swahili cities. However, it is important to acknowledge the darker aspects of this trade, including the tragic and inhumane slave trade. These were very valuable in markets across the Indian Ocean. The goods traded in the Swahili cities were in high demand, and the bustling markets were a testament to the region's economic vitality. Traders from Arabia, India, and even China would come to these markets to buy and sell goods. The Swahili cities were like the middlemen, connecting African traders with buyers in Arabia, India, and even China. This intermediary role made the Swahili cities incredibly important in the global trade network, facilitating the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultures across vast distances. The Swahili city-states were experts at trading over the sea. They had connections all across the Indian Ocean. Their ships, called dhows, were a common sight. These dhows, with their triangle sails, were perfect for using the monsoon winds. The monsoon winds, blowing from the northeast in the summer and the southwest in the winter, made trading and traveling across the Indian Ocean easier. The Swahili merchants sailed far and wide, carrying goods and stories. They went to the Arabian Peninsula, trading with Arab merchants in busy ports like Aden and Muscat. They also sailed east to India, trading in the busy ports of Gujarat and the Malabar coast. Some even went as far as China, trading with the powerful Ming dynasty. The Swahili coast had valuable things that everyone in the Indian Ocean wanted. These exports were what kept the Swahili city-states going. Traders brought many goods from inland Africa to the coastal cities. Gold, mined in places like the Zimbabwean plateau, was very valuable. Ivory from elephants was another important export, used for carvings and jewelry. Animal skins, especially leopard skins, were also popular. Sadly, slaves were another major export, taken from wars and raids inland and sold across the Indian Ocean. These exports from the Swahili coast helped the economies of faraway lands and made the Swahili merchants who controlled the trade very rich. The Swahili city-states also bought many things from across the Indian Ocean. These imports showed the different tastes of the wealthy Swahili people and what people wanted in their markets. From the Arabian Peninsula, Swahili merchants brought back frankincense and myrrh, nice-smelling resins used for religious things and perfumes. They also imported well-made textiles, swords and daggers from Yemen and Oman. From India, they brought back cotton cloth, silk and spices. Spices like cloves, pepper and cinnamon were valuable for their flavor and for keeping food fresh. From China, Swahili traders brought back porcelain, silks and beads. All these imports made the Swahili city-states richer and more culturally diverse. The Indian Ocean trade helped spread Islam to East Africa. Arab traders, many of whom were Muslim, brought their religion with them. As they talked with the Swahili people, they shared their beliefs. Islam became very important on the Swahili coast, slowly growing and spreading. Many Swahili people became Muslims, liking its message of equality and justice. Mosques, where Muslims worship, were built in Swahili cities, becoming important parts of the city. The call to prayer from the tall towers of the mosques became a common sound. While the Swahili city-states thrived on the coast, a powerful kingdom grew inland in southern Africa. This kingdom, Great Zimbabwe, became very important between the 11th and 15th centuries. Great Zimbabwe showed how advanced and wealthy African civilization was. The name Zimbabwe probably comes from the Shona words Dzimba Dzamabwe, meaning houses of stone. This describes the most amazing part of Great Zimbabwe, its huge stone buildings. These structures, built without cement or glue, show how skilled the Shona people were. The city of Great Zimbabwe, with its big walls, palaces, and ceremonial areas, was the capital of this powerful kingdom. Great Zimbabwe became powerful because of its location and control over trade routes. The kingdom was in an area with lots of gold and other resources. This allowed Great Zimbabwe to control trade between inland southern Africa and the Swahili coast. Gold, mined nearby, was a major export along with ivory, copper and animal skins. These were taken to the Swahili coast and traded for fancy goods from across the Indian Ocean. Archaeologists have found things like Chinese porcelain, Persian glass beads and other foreign objects at Great Zimbabwe. This shows how far its trade network reached. The Indian Ocean trade had a big and lasting impact on East Africa. This vast network of maritime routes connected various civilizations, facilitating not just the exchange of goods, but also ideas, cultures, and technologies. The trade routes spanned from the Arabian Peninsula to the Indian subcontinent, reaching as far as Southeast Asia and the eastern coast of Africa. These interactions laid the foundation for a rich tapestry of cultural and economic exchanges that would shape the region for centuries to come. The Swahili coast, with its mix of African, Arab and Asian cultures, shows this. The bustling markets were not just centers of commerce, but also melting pots of diverse traditions and languages. Here, traders from different backgrounds would meet, exchange goods like gold, ivory and spices, and share stories and knowledge enriching the local culture. The Swahili language, a Bantu language with Arabic words, is spoken by millions today. This linguistic blend is a testament to the enduring influence of centuries of trade and interaction. Swahili serves as a lingua franca in many parts of East Africa, bridging communities and fostering a sense of shared identity. It shows the mix of cultures on the Swahili coast. Festivals and traditional dances celebrate this unique heritage, showcasing the harmonious blend of African, Arab and Asian influences. These cultural expressions are living reminders of the region's vibrant history and the enduring impact of trade. The buildings on the Swahili coast, with mosques, palaces and houses made of coral stone, show the influence of Arab and Islamic traditions. These architectural marvels stand as silent witnesses to the region's historical connections with the broader Islamic world, reflecting the artistic and cultural exchanges that took place over centuries. We can still see the legacy of Great Zimbabwe in the amazing stone ruins. These impressive structures are a testament to the ingenuity and architectural prowess of the ancient civilization. They also highlight the extensive trade networks that once connected Great Zimbabwe to the Swahili coast and beyond. Even though it eventually slowed down, the Indian Ocean trade changed the history, culture, and identity of East Africa. The artifacts and ancient ports that dot the coastline are tangible reminders of a time when East Africa was a bustling hub of international trade. These remnants offer valuable insights into the region's past and its role in the global economy. It reminds us how connected different societies are and how powerful trade and cultural exchange can be. The legacy of the Indian Ocean trade serves as a powerful reminder of the interconnectedness of human societies. It underscores the importance of cultural exchange in fostering mutual understanding and cooperation, lessons that are just as relevant today as they were centuries ago. Imagine it's the 1400s. The world is a vast, mysterious place, with many regions still unexplored by Europeans. People rely on maps that are often inaccurate, filled with mythical creatures and speculative geography. The known world is limited to Europe, parts of Asia, and the northern coast of Africa. A big change is about to happen in the world, the Age of Exploration. This era, spanning from the early 15th century to the 17th century, marks a period of unprecedented global exploration. European nations, driven by the desire for new trade routes, wealth, and knowledge, began to venture into the unknown. European countries, curious, ambitious, and wanting to get rich, started sailing across the oceans. They built advanced ships capable of long voyages, equipped with the latest navigational tools like the astrolabe and compass. These explorers were often funded by monarchs and wealthy patrons who hoped to gain immense riches from their discoveries. They wanted to find new ways to trade with the East, because the old ways were blocked by the Ottoman Empire. The overland routes, such as the Silk Road, had become dangerous and expensive due to the control exerted by the Ottomans. This blockade spurred the Europeans to seek alternative maritime routes to access the lucrative markets of Asia. They didn't know they were about to find a whole continent full of resources and culture, Africa. As they sailed down the western coast of Africa, they encountered rich and diverse cultures, vast natural resources, and complex societies. These early encounters would lay the groundwork for future interactions, both positive and negative. This age of exploration changed how the world worked and had a huge impact on Africa. European explorers and traders established new trade routes, bringing goods such as gold, ivory, and spices back to Europe. In return, they introduced European goods and ideas to African societies, leading to significant cultural exchanges. It brought European explorers to Africa, starting a mix of trade, conquest, and cultural exchange. These interactions were complex and multifaceted, involving cooperation, conflict, and negotiation. African leaders and traders engaged with Europeans on their own terms, often leveraging their knowledge and resources to their advantage. While this time brought new opportunities, it also brought a lot of suffering, especially with the awful transatlantic slave trade. The demand for labor in the New World led to the forced transportation of millions of Africans across the Atlantic. This brutal system had devastating effects on African societies, tearing families apart and causing immense human suffering. The legacy of this dark chapter in history continues to impact the world today. Portugal was one of the main countries exploring during the Age of Discovery. This era, spanning from the 15th to the 17th century, saw European nations embarking on extensive overseas exploration. Portugal, with its strategic location and maritime expertise, was at the forefront of this movement. Prince Henry the Navigator, a central figure in this era, played a crucial role. He established a school for navigation at Sagres, where sailors, cartographers, and shipbuilders could collaborate and innovate. His vision and support encouraged Portuguese sailors to explore the west coast of Africa, seeking new trade routes and opportunities. The primary goal of these expeditions was to find a sea route to India, a land renowned for its spices, silks, and other riches. The overland routes were long, arduous, and controlled by various intermediaries, making direct trade difficult and expensive. A maritime route promised greater profits and fewer obstacles. As they ventured further along the African coast, the Portuguese began establishing trading posts. These outposts served as resupply stations for their ships and facilitated trade with local African kingdoms. This marked the beginning of a significant Portuguese presence in Africa, which would have lasting impacts on both continents. Among the many explorers, Bartolomeu Dias stands out. His expeditions were instrumental in pushing the boundaries of known geography. Dias's determination and navigational skills were key in advancing Portuguese exploration efforts. In 1488, Dias achieved a monumental feat by sailing around the southern tip of Africa, later named the Cape of Good Hope. This breakthrough proved that it was possible to reach the Indian Ocean by sea, opening up new possibilities for trade and exploration. The successful navigation around the Cape of Good Hope was a turning point. It demonstrated that the long-sought maritime route to the Indian Ocean was achievable, paving the way for future expeditions and the eventual establishment of a sea route to India. These voyages had profound implications. They not only increased European presence in Africa, but also initiated a period of significant cultural and economic exchange. The interactions between Europeans and Africans would forever alter the course of history for both continents, leading to a complex legacy of exploration, trade, and colonization. At first, Europeans mostly wanted to trade with Africa, but things turned dark with the transatlantic slave trade. The Portuguese needed workers for their sugar plantations in the Americas, so they started taking people from Africa by force. This was the start of a terrible time in history. The slave trade was brutal. Millions of people were taken from their homes and families. It messed up local economies and governments in Africa, leaving a long-lasting impact of pain and inequality. The age of exploration was helped by new technology for ships and map-making. Explorers used new ships called caravels. These ships were easy to steer, which made it easier to sail the oceans. They also had better tools like the astrolabe and compass to help them figure out where they were going. These new tools helped them make better maps, which led to even more exploration and trade. The printing press also helped spread knowledge and maps, so more people could explore. African societies reacted to the Europeans in different ways. Some kingdoms saw a chance to trade and exchange things like gold, ivory, and spices for European goods. This led to trading posts and bigger trade networks, but not everyone was happy. Some African rulers fought against the Europeans, protecting their land and independence. They didn't trust the newcomers and wanted to stay in control. Europeans didn't just walk in and take over. The process of colonization was met with fierce resistance from the very beginning. African societies were not passive victims. They were active defenders of their territories. The arrival of Europeans was seen as a direct threat to their sovereignty, culture, and way of life. This resistance was not just a series of isolated incidents, but a widespread and organized effort across the continent. Many African kingdoms and communities fought back hard to protect their land, culture, and way of life. They employed various strategies from guerrilla warfare to large-scale battles. The bravery and determination of these warriors were remarkable. They were fighting not just for themselves, but for future generations, hoping to preserve their heritage and independence. The resistance was a testament to their resilience and unyielding spirit. They knew the Europeans were dangerous and fought to stay independent. African leaders and warriors understood the stakes and were willing to make great sacrifices. They organized their communities, trained their fighters, and developed strategies to counter the European military tactics. The resistance was a collective effort involving men, women, and even children, all united in their desire to remain free. They fought back in different ways, from actual fighting to making alliances and talking things out. Diplomacy played a crucial role in the resistance. African leaders sought to negotiate with European powers, trying to find peaceful solutions while maintaining their autonomy. They also formed alliances with other African kingdoms and even with rival European nations to strengthen their position. The resistance was multifaceted, combining military, diplomatic, and strategic efforts. Some African leaders even used the fact that European countries didn't like each other to their advantage, playing them against each other. This clever use of European rivalries helped to delay or even prevent colonization in some areas. By exploiting these divisions, African leaders were able to buy time, gather resources, and strengthen their defenses. It was a sophisticated and intelligent approach to resistance, demonstrating their political acumen and strategic thinking. There are many stories of African bravery and strength during this time. These stories are a vital part of African history and heritage, showcasing the courage and determination of those who stood up against colonization. Monuments and memorials across the continent honor these heroes, ensuring that their legacy lives on. The resistance against European colonization is a powerful reminder of the enduring spirit of African people and their unwavering commitment to freedom and independence. Even though the slave trade was a terrible thing, not everything between Africans and Europeans was bad. Trade was important. African kingdoms traded gold, ivory, spices, and other valuable things for European goods, guns, and other things they wanted. This trade, even though it wasn't always fair, did help economies grow and cultures mix. When people explore, cultures meet. This happened with Africans and Europeans. Even though things weren't equal, they shared ideas, beliefs, and ways of doing things. Language, religion, and art were all changed by this. In some parts of Africa, Christianity mixed with traditional African beliefs. African art started to use European styles and materials, showing how cultures mixed together. The age of exploration changed Africa in big ways, both good and bad. It brought new technology, trade, and cultural exchange, but it also brought exploitation, slavery, and colonialism. To understand this time, we need to look at both the good and the bad things that happened. What happened then still affects Africa today. It reminds us that what happens in the world is connected and that it's important to understand history, even the complicated parts. The Atlantic slave trade was a horrific period in human history. It represents one of the darkest chapters, marked by immense suffering and inhumanity. The trade was not just a series of isolated events, but a well-organized and systematic exploitation of African people. It spanned over 3 centuries, from the early 1500s to the late 1800s. This prolonged period saw the forced migration of millions of Africans who were torn from their homeland and subjected to unimaginable hardships. From the 16th to the 19th century, European powers engaged in the systematic trade of African people. These European nations, driven by the desire for wealth and power, established extensive networks to facilitate this trade. They were shipped across the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas. The journey, known as the Middle Passage, was notorious for its brutality and high mortality rates. Many did not survive the harrowing voyage. This forced migration was brutal. Enslaved Africans were packed into ships under deplorable conditions, with little regard for their health or well-being. The physical and psychological trauma they endured was immense. It was driven by greed and a thirst for cheap labor. The labor of enslaved Africans was exploited to build the economies of the Americas, particularly in the production of cash crops like sugar, tobacco, and cotton. Millions of Africans were forcibly removed from their homes. They endured unimaginable hardships, including separation from their families, loss of freedom, and severe punishment for any form of resistance. The transatlantic slave trade was unprecedented in its scale. It is estimated that over 12 million Africans were transported across the Atlantic, with countless more affected by the trade's ripple effects. It resulted in the enslavement of millions of Africans. These individuals were sold in markets, treated as property, and subjected to a lifetime of forced labor and oppression. It had a profound impact on the Americas, Europe, and Africa. The trade reshaped societies, economies, and cultures across these continents, leaving a lasting legacy that is still felt today. This essay delves into the origins, mechanics, and consequences of this dark chapter in human history. It examines the complex web of factors that sustained the trade and the profound human cost it entailed. It explores the trade's lasting legacy on the modern world. The descendants of enslaved Africans continue to grapple with the historical trauma and systemic inequalities that originated from this period. This trade forever changed the demographic landscape of 3 continents. The forced migration led to significant population shifts and the creation of diverse, multicultural societies. This trade was also a catalyst for cultural change. The blending of African, European, and indigenous cultures gave rise to new traditions, art forms, and social practices. It led to the development of new musical genres. It influenced cuisine, bringing African culinary traditions into the Americas, where they blended with local ingredients and techniques. It shaped religious practices in the Americas. African spiritual beliefs and practices merged with Christianity, creating unique religious traditions that persist to this day. The Atlantic slave trade is a stark reminder of the capacity for human cruelty. It serves as a powerful testament to the depths of human suffering and the resilience of those who endured it. It highlights the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. Enslaved Africans resisted their oppression in numerous ways, from subtle acts of defiance to organized rebellions. The trade's impact is still felt today. The legacy of slavery continues to influence contemporary issues of race, inequality, and social justice. It is crucial to examine and understand this period to address its lingering consequences. By studying the past, we can better understand the present and work towards a more just future. We must fight against all forms of racism and injustice. The struggle for equality and human rights continues, inspired by the resilience and courage of those who came before us. We must strive for a more equitable and just world. By acknowledging the past and committing to change, we can build a future where all people are treated with dignity and respect. The roots of the Atlantic slave trade can be traced back to the 15th century. It began with the European age of exploration. Portugal, driven by Prince Henry the Navigator, began exploring the coast of Africa. This was in search of new trade routes to the east. The Portuguese established trading posts along the African coast. They began trading goods such as gold, ivory, and slaves. The demand for labor in the newly discovered Americas fueled the slave trade. European colonies in the Americas needed a large workforce. This was to cultivate cash crops. These crops included sugar, tobacco, and cotton. These crops were labor-intensive. Europeans turned to Africa to satisfy this demand. This was the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade. The trade was driven by economic motives. European powers sought to maximize profits. The triangular trade system emerged as a lucrative enterprise. It enriched European merchants and nations. It laid the foundation for the Industrial Revolution. This economic prosperity, however, came at a tremendous human cost. The transatlantic slave trade flourished for centuries. It left a legacy of pain, suffering, and injustice. The Atlantic slave trade operated on a triangular system. It connected Europe, Africa, and the Americas. This system was driven by a relentless pursuit of profit. It involved 3 main stages. The first stage involved European ships sailing to Africa. They carried manufactured goods such as textiles, guns, and alcohol. These goods were exchanged for enslaved Africans. The second stage, known as the Middle Passage, was the most horrific. It involved transporting enslaved Africans across the Atlantic to the Americas. The conditions on these slave ships were appalling. Enslaved Africans were crammed into tight spaces below deck. They suffered from disease, malnutrition, and physical abuse. Many perished during the journey. Those who survived the Middle Passage faced a life of forced labor on plantations in the Americas. The final leg of the triangular trade involved ships carrying raw materials. These included sugar, tobacco, cotton, and other goods. These goods were produced through slave labor in the Americas. They were transported back to Europe. They were sold for immense profits. These profits fueled further European expansion and industrial growth. Section 4. African complicity and resistance, a nuanced perspective. The role of Africans in the transatlantic slave trade is complex. It is often misunderstood. Many people tend to oversimplify this aspect of history either by ignoring African involvement or by placing undue blame on African societies. While it is true that some African rulers and traders participated in the trade, they captured and sold enslaved Africans to Europeans. This participation was driven by various factors, including political, economic, and social pressures. It is crucial to understand the historical context. African societies were diverse with different cultures, languages, and political structures. The motivations and actions of African leaders varied widely. African societies had their own systems of slavery and servitude before European involvement. These systems were often integrated into the social and economic fabric of their communities. However, these systems were often different from the chattel slavery practiced by Europeans. African slavery was generally less brutal and allowed for more social mobility. They were less brutal and offered more opportunities for social mobility. Enslaved individuals could sometimes integrate into the community, marry, and even rise to positions of influence. The arrival of Europeans disrupted these existing systems and created new economic incentives for the slave trade. The demand for labor in the New World led to an increase in the capture and sale of enslaved Africans. Some African rulers saw an opportunity to profit from the trade and used it to consolidate their power. They engaged in the trade to acquire European goods, such as guns, textiles, and alcohol. They did this by acquiring European goods, such as guns. These weapons were then used to strengthen their military capabilities and subjugate neighboring kingdoms. These guns were used to subjugate neighboring kingdoms, fueling conflict and instability within Africa. The increased availability of firearms led to more frequent and deadly conflicts. However, it is essential to remember that many Africans resisted the slave trade. Resistance took many forms, from armed rebellion to subtle acts of defiance. African communities fought back against European slave traders. They employed various tactics, including guerrilla warfare, to defend their people and territories. Some African rulers refused to participate in the trade. They recognized the devastating impact it had on their societies and sought to protect their people. They resisted European encroachment on their territories and sought to protect their people from enslavement. These leaders played a crucial role in the broader resistance against the transatlantic slave trade. Section 5. Scars on the continent, the social and economic impacts on Africa. The transatlantic slave trade had a devastating impact on African societies, altering the course of history for the continent in profound ways. It is impossible to fully comprehend the scale of human suffering it caused, as millions of lives were disrupted and destroyed. The trade led to the forced removal of millions of people from their homes, tearing them away from their families and communities. It ripped apart families, destroyed communities, and left lasting scars on the continent that are still felt today. The trade had a profound demographic impact, significantly altering the population structure of many regions. It is estimated that over 12 million Africans were forcibly transported to the Americas, a journey marked by unimaginable suffering and loss. This resulted in a significant loss of population in many parts of Africa, particularly affecting West Africa, which saw entire communities decimated. It skewed population demographics and hindered social and economic development, creating long-term challenges for growth and stability. The trade also fueled internal conflicts and destabilized entire regions as different groups vied for control and power. African kingdoms and communities were pitted against each other, competing for control of the slave trade, which led to further fragmentation and strife. This led to a climate of fear and violence and undermined traditional social structures, eroding the fabric of African societies. The trade also had a long-term economic impact, distorting African economies and shifting the focus from traditional industries to slave trading. It distorted African economies and shifted the focus from traditional industries to slave trading, which had detrimental effects on local development. This hindered the development of local industries and agriculture, making African societies more vulnerable to European exploitation and colonization. The legacy of the slave trade continues to affect Africa today, as the continent grapples with the long-term consequences of this dark chapter in history. Imagine the 1800s, a time of immense change and transformation. The world was on the brink of a new era, and nowhere was this more evident than in Europe. Europe was buzzing with activity. The Industrial Revolution was in full swing, bringing about rapid advancements in technology and industry. Factories were springing up everywhere, and new inventions were changing the way people lived and worked. These factories needed raw materials to keep their machines running and to produce the goods that were in high demand. Europe, however, didn't have all the resources it needed. So they looked beyond their borders. Their eyes turned to Africa, a continent rich in natural resources. European explorers and adventurers began to map out the vast and largely uncharted territories of Africa, driven by the promise of untold wealth. Africa was a treasure trove of valuable resources like gold, diamonds, rubber, and other raw materials. These were exactly what the European factories needed to fuel their industrial ambitions. The race was on. European countries scrambled to claim as much of Africa as they could. This period of intense competition and colonization is known as the Scramble for Africa. The Scramble for Africa was marked by a frenzy of land grabs, treaties, and sometimes outright conflict. European powers carved up the continent with little regard for the existing African societies and their complex cultures. Before the Europeans arrived, Africa was home to a multitude of kingdoms, tribes, and communities, each with its own unique culture, language, and way of life. These societies had rich histories and traditions that were often overlooked by the colonizers. The European powers, however, paid little attention to these existing boundaries and social structures. They drew new borders that often split communities and forced different groups together, leading to long-term conflicts and tensions. The colonizers believed they were superior to the African people and justified their actions with a sense of entitlement and racial superiority. They exploited Africa's resources with little regard for the well-being of its inhabitants. European factories had an insatiable appetite for raw materials. Africa's vast reserves of rubber, diamonds, gold, and other resources were extracted and shipped back to Europe, fueling the industrial machine. The division of Africa among European powers was like a grand feast, with each country grabbing as much as they could. This period left a lasting impact on the continent, the effects of which are still felt today. Something important happened in Europe that changed Africa forever. This event would set the stage for a dramatic and often tragic reshaping of the African continent, altering its future in ways that are still felt today. It was called the Berlin Conference, held from 1884 to 1885. This conference was a pivotal moment in history where the fate of an entire continent was decided without its people's consent. Germany's leader, Otto von Bismarck, brought together 14 European countries and the United States. These powerful nations convened to discuss their interests in Africa, driven by a desire for new resources and territories. They wanted to decide how to divide Africa among themselves. The map of Africa was laid out before them, and they began to draw lines, carving up the continent with little regard for the people living there. They made a rule called effective occupation, meaning if a European country controlled a part of Africa, they could claim it. This rule was meant to legitimize their claims and prevent conflicts among themselves. The worst part? No Africans were invited to this meeting. The very people whose land was being divided had no say in the matter. Their voices were completely ignored. The lines they drew on the map split up groups of people who shared the same language and culture. These arbitrary borders created divisions that led to conflicts and tensions, the effects of which are still evident in Africa today. Before the Berlin Conference, Africa was a continent of diverse cultures, languages, and societies. African leaders governed their own territories, and communities thrived with rich traditions and histories. But the decisions made at the Berlin Conference led to a period of intense colonial exploitation. European powers extracted resources, oppressed local populations, and imposed their own systems of governance, often with brutal force. Despite the lasting impact of these colonial borders and the challenges they created, African nations have shown incredible resilience. Today, they continue to rebuild and reclaim their identities, striving for a future that honors their rich heritage and diverse cultures. At the Berlin Conference, they decided Africa's fate. European countries now felt they had permission to take control of Africa. They used their powerful weapons and armies to take over. Even though Europeans had better weapons, Africans fought back bravely. Sometimes European countries tricked African leaders into signing treaties that seemed like agreements for protection, but really gave away their land. Taking over Africa was violent and cruel. Many Africans died from fighting, hunger and sickness. Even though Europeans were powerful, Africans didn't give up. They faced overwhelming odds, with European forces often better armed and more numerous. Yet the spirit of defiance burned brightly across the continent. All over Africa, people resisted. Some fought with weapons, others used clever diplomacy, negotiating with European powers to protect their lands and people. These acts of resistance were not just about physical battles, but also about preserving their way of life and asserting their right to self-determination. Many worked tirelessly to protect their culture, ensuring that their traditions, languages and customs were passed down through generations. This cultural resistance was a powerful form of defiance, as it kept the essence of African identity alive despite the pressures of colonization. Samori Touré, a great leader in West Africa, fought against the French for many years. His military strategies and relentless spirit made him a formidable opponent. He established a well-organized army and used guerrilla tactics to challenge the French forces. Even though he lost in the end, he became a symbol of African resistance. His legacy lives on, inspiring future generations to stand up against oppression and fight for their freedom. 𝒂𝒐𝒂𝒏𝒅, a queen in what is now Ghana, also bravely led a rebellion against the British. She rallied her people and led them into battle, showing incredible leadership and courage. Her defiance was a beacon of hope for many. Her courage is still remembered today. Monuments and celebrations in her honor remind us of her bravery and the enduring spirit of resistance that she embodied. Her story, like many others, is a testament to the unyielding strength and resilience of the African people. The scramble for Africa wasn't just about land, it was about money. European factories needed resources and they took them from Africa. King Leopold II of Belgium controlled a huge area called the Congo Free State. He forced the people there to work on rubber plantations and millions died from the terrible conditions. This happened all over Africa. Europeans took gold, diamonds, cocoa and other resources, making African countries poor. Europeans also wanted to change African culture. They sent Christian missionaries to convert people. Missionaries built schools and hospitals which helped some people, but they also tried to make Africans forget their own cultures. Missionaries sometimes helped colonial governments because they knew the local languages. The missionaries changed Africa in both good and bad ways. They brought education and healthcare, but they also hurt African cultures. After World War II, things started to change. European countries were weaker and African countries wanted freedom. This was the start of decolonization. Some countries like Ghana gained independence peacefully, while others had to fight for it. But even after independence, things were difficult. The lines drawn by Europeans caused conflicts between different groups within countries. The scramble for Africa ended a long time ago, but its effects are still felt today. The borders drawn by Europeans still cause problems. Many African countries are still poor because of how Europeans controlled their economies. African cultures are still recovering from the effects of colonialism, but there is hope. Africans are working to remember their history and celebrate their culture. They want the world to know about the wrongs of the past. The Scramble for Africa teaches us about the dangers of greed and prejudice. It's a story of how powerful countries hurt many people. We need to learn from this and build a fairer world. Africa faces many challenges, but it also has a lot of potential. Young people, lots of resources, and a rich culture give Africa a bright future. By understanding the past and working together, we can help Africa achieve its full potential. Africa, a continent changed forever. The story of Africa's colonization is one of profound transformation, marked by the arrival of European powers who sought to reshape the continent to fit their own ambitions and desires. When European countries arrived in Africa, everything changed. The initial encounters were often marked by curiosity and trade, but soon the Europeans' intentions became clear. They were not just visitors, they were conquerors. What started as a small trading post became a race to control land. European nations scrambled to claim territories, driven by the desire for wealth and power. These trading posts quickly evolved into fortified settlements, and the race for control intensified. By the early 1900s, almost all of Africa was ruled by European countries. The continent was carved up with little regard for the existing ethnic and cultural boundaries, leading to a patchwork of colonies under various European flags. This changed everything about African life, from how people were governed to what they did every day. Traditional systems of governance were replaced with European models, and daily life was disrupted as Africans were forced to adapt to new rules and expectations. We're going to look at what life was like in Africa under colonial rule, how the Europeans controlled everything, how it changed society and the economy, and how different cultures clashed and sometimes mixed together. The imposition of European culture and systems often led to resistance and conflict, but also to new forms of cultural exchange and hybrid identities. European countries wanted to control Africa for a few reasons. They wanted its resources, such as gold, diamonds, and rubber, which were abundant and could fuel their industrial economies back home. They wanted to be more powerful than other European countries, and having colonies was a way to demonstrate national strength and prestige. The competition among European powers often led to conflicts and wars, both in Africa and in Europe. And they thought their culture was better than everyone else's. This belief in cultural superiority, often referred to as the civilizing mission, justified their actions in their own eyes and led to efforts to impose European languages, religions, and customs on African societies. Europe needed resources from Africa for its factories. The raw materials extracted from African lands were essential for the burgeoning industries in Europe, and the exploitation of these resources often came at a great human cost. Also, European countries were competing with each other to have the most colonies. This competition was not just about resources, but also about strategic advantage and national pride. And sadly, they believed they were better than Africans, and this made them think it was okay to control and mistreat African people. The colonial system was built on a foundation of racial hierarchy and exploitation, leading to widespread suffering and injustice. Colonialism was terrible for Africa. It brought about immense suffering, disrupted societies, and left a legacy of division and conflict that persists to this day. African countries lost their independence, their traditions were destroyed, and their social structures were upended. The imposition of foreign rule and the suppression of local customs and governance systems had long-lasting effects on African societies. Their resources and people were exploited. Africans were often forced into labor, working in harsh conditions to extract the wealth that would benefit their colonial rulers. The Europeans drew borders without caring about the different groups of people who already lived there, leading to artificial divisions that ignored ethnic, linguistic, and cultural boundaries. And those divisions still cause problems today. The arbitrary borders drawn by colonial powers have contributed to ongoing conflicts and tensions in many African countries. This difficult time changed Africa forever, affecting its politics, economy, and society for many years to come. The legacy of colonialism is complex, with both negative and positive aspects, but its impact is undeniable and continues to shape the continent's future. Controlling a continent, different ways to rule. The European powers had vast empires, and they needed effective ways to manage these territories. European countries used different ways to control such large and different places. The methods they chose often depended on their own administrative traditions and the specific conditions in the colonies. There were two main ways: direct rule and indirect rule. Each had its own set of strategies and implications for the colonized people. Countries like France and Belgium used direct rule. This meant they imposed their own systems of governance directly onto the colonies. They put their own people in charge and tried to make Africans live and be governed like Europeans. This often involved building European-style infrastructure and enforcing European laws and customs. Local leaders lost their power. Traditional structures of authority were dismantled, and African societies were forced to adapt to new foreign systems. The British mostly used indirect rule. This approach was different in that it sought to maintain existing local power structures. They tried to rule through local leaders, making them work for the British government. This meant that local chiefs and kings were often co-opted into the colonial administration. This was cheaper, and they hoped it would make Africans less likely to fight back because things seemed the same as before. However, this often led to a dual system of governance that could be confusing and inefficient, but it actually messed up traditional ways of leading and caused even more problems between different groups of people. The imposition of foreign rule disrupted social harmony and led to conflicts. Both direct and indirect rule were all about the Europeans getting what they wanted. The primary goal was to extract resources and maintain control over the colonies. They wanted to stay in control, take resources, and make as much money as possible. The economic exploitation of the colonies was a key driver of colonial policies. Africans couldn't vote or participate in government, and the Europeans made them work in ways that only benefited Europe. The lack of political representation and economic exploitation led to widespread discontent. This unfair treatment led to many Africans fighting back and wanting their freedom. The struggle for independence was fueled by the desire to reclaim autonomy and dignity. A new way of life. How everyday things changed. The arrival of colonial powers in Africa marked a significant turning point in the daily lives of African people. Traditional ways of living, which had been passed down through generations, were suddenly disrupted. Colonial rule changed everything about how Africans lived. The social fabric of communities was altered, and the economic structures that had sustained them for centuries were upended. The imposition of new laws and systems by the colonizers meant that Africans had to adapt to entirely new ways of life. In the countryside, the Europeans made farmers grow things like coffee, cotton, and rubber to sell. These cash crops were not meant for local consumption but for export to European markets. This shift in agricultural focus had profound implications for local food security and the traditional farming practices that had been in place for generations. This disrupted traditional farming and forced people off their land. Many farmers found themselves without the means to sustain their families, leading to widespread displacement and hardship. The loss of land meant the loss of identity and heritage for many communities. People went hungry because they couldn't grow enough food for themselves. The focus on cash crops left little room for the cultivation of staple foods, leading to food shortages and famine in many areas. The nutritional well-being of entire populations was compromised. Cities grew quickly because people moved there looking for work in mines and factories. The promise of employment in urban centers drew many from rural areas, leading to rapid urbanization. However, the reality of city life was often harsh and unforgiving. These jobs were hard and didn't pay much, and people lived in crowded, dirty neighborhoods. The working conditions in mines and factories were often dangerous and exploitative. The influx of people into cities led to the development of slums, where living conditions were poor and sanitation was inadequate. Families and communities changed because so many people moved from the countryside to the cities, and new social classes developed. Education also changed. The migration to urban areas led to the breakdown of traditional family structures and the emergence of new social dynamics. The introduction of Western education systems further altered the social landscape. Some European countries built schools, but not everyone could go, and what they taught was meant to make Africans more like Europeans. The education system was designed to serve the interests of the colonial powers, often neglecting the rich cultural heritage of African societies. They taught European languages, history, and culture, not African traditions. This education system aimed to create a class of Africans who were loyal to the colonial rulers and could assist in the administration of the colonies. They wanted to train some Africans to work for the colonial government. This created a small elite class that was educated in European ways, further deepening the divide between the colonizers and the colonized. Cities transformed, growth and inequality. When different cultures are forced together, things get complicated. Africans started mixing European ways with their own, but it caused tension. Many Africans fought back against colonial rule because they wanted freedom and to keep their own identity. These resistance movements are a very important part of history because they show how strong and determined Africans were. We can still see the effects of colonialism today. The borders, economies, and societies of African countries are still shaped by what happened during colonial times. It's important to understand how the past affects Africa today, both the problems and the opportunities. To really understand Africa, we need to listen to African people. Hearing from the people who lived through colonialism and who still live with its effects gives us a much better understanding of African history. Their stories are really important. By understanding the difficult history of colonialism, we can build a better future. If we remember what African societies went through, both the bad and the good, we can work towards a fairer world for everyone. Learning from history helps us build a future that respects the strength and diversity of Africa. Pan-Africanism is a powerful idea. It is the belief that people of African descent are connected. They share a common history and a common future. This idea emerged in response to terrible injustices. Slavery, colonialism, and racism created suffering for millions. Pan-Africanism offered a vision of hope. It called for unity and solidarity among Africans everywhere. It aimed to uplift and empower people of African descent. This essay will explore the rise of Pan-Africanism. We will look at its early advocates. These pioneers dared to dream of a different world. We will also examine key events that shaped the movement. These events brought people together to fight for a common goal. Pan-Africanism's journey has been long and complex. It is a story of struggle, resilience, and hope. It is a story that continues to unfold today. The seeds of Pan-Africanism were sown in the 19th century, a period marked by significant transformations and upheavals across the African continent and beyond. This was a time of great change and upheaval, as societies grappled with the end of long-standing institutions and the emergence of new ideologies. The transatlantic slave trade, which had forcibly removed millions of Africans from their homeland, was coming to an end, signaling a new era of possibilities and challenges. Meanwhile, European powers were scrambling for control of Africa, carving up the continent in a frenzy of colonization that would have lasting impacts on its people and cultures. In this turbulent era, a few brave voices began to speak out for African unity and self-determination, planting the early seeds of what would become the Pan-African movement. One such voice was Martin Delany, a visionary who saw beyond the immediate struggles to a future where African people could stand united. Delany was a prominent abolitionist and writer whose works and speeches inspired many to consider the possibilities of a united African identity. He believed that black people could never achieve true equality in white-dominated societies, and that a separate, self-sustaining nation was essential for their dignity and progress. He called for black Americans to create their own nation, a place where they could govern themselves and build a future free from oppression. He argued that Africa was the natural homeland for black people, a place rich in resources and potential where they could thrive. Another early advocate was Alexander Crummell, whose intellectual and spiritual contributions were equally significant. Crummell was a priest and scholar, deeply committed to the idea that Africa held the key to the future for black people worldwide. He shared Delany's belief in Africa's potential, seeing the continent as a place where black people could build a new and glorious future, free from the shackles of colonialism and racism. He saw the continent as a place where black people could build a new and glorious future, a vision that would inspire many in the years to come. He emphasized the importance of education and self-reliance, believing that these were the cornerstones of a strong and independent African society. Edward Blyden was another key figure in early Pan-Africanism, whose life and work left an indelible mark on the movement. Blyden was a writer, educator and diplomat, whose efforts to promote African unity and pride were instrumental in shaping the early Pan-African discourse. He spent much of his life in Liberia, a nation founded by freed slaves, where he worked tirelessly to build a society based on African values and self-determination. He believed that Africa had a unique culture and identity, one that was distinct and valuable in its own right. He argued that this identity should be celebrated and preserved, as it was the foundation upon which a strong and united Africa could be built. These early pioneers laid the groundwork for the Pan-African movement, articulating a vision of unity and self-determination that would resonate through the ages. They articulated a vision of African unity and self-determination, a dream that would inspire countless others to join the cause. Their ideas would inspire generations to come, laying the foundation for a movement that continues to strive for a united and empowered Africa. At the turn of the 20th century, Pan-Africanism gained significant momentum, becoming a powerful force for change and unity among people of African descent across the globe. This was due in large part to the tireless work and visionary leadership of two towering figures, Webb Du Bois and Marcus Garvey, whose efforts laid the foundation for future movements. Webb Du Bois was a sociologist, historian, and activist, whose scholarly work and activism were instrumental in shaping the intellectual underpinnings of Pan-Africanism. He's often called the father of modern Pan-Africanism, a title that reflects his profound influence on the movement. Du Bois believed that black people around the world faced common problems, rooted in systemic racism and colonial oppression. He argued passionately that they needed to unite to address these problems, advocating for solidarity and collective action. To this end, he organized a series of Pan-African congresses, which served as crucial platforms for discussion and strategy. These congresses brought together intellectuals and activists from Africa, the Caribbean, and the United States, fostering a sense of global unity and purpose. Marcus Garvey, a Jamaican-born activist and entrepreneur, was another pivotal figure in the Pan-African movement. He's best known for his Back to Africa movement, which sought to inspire black people to return to their ancestral homeland. Garvey believed that black people would never achieve true equality in white-dominated societies, and that self-determination was essential. He urged black people to return to Africa and build their own nation, free from the constraints of colonial rule and racial discrimination. To promote his ideas, Garvey founded the Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, which became a powerful vehicle for his vision of black empowerment and unity. Despite their shared goals, Du Bois and Garvey had different approaches to Pan-Africanism, reflecting their unique perspectives and experiences. Du Bois emphasized intellectual and political engagement, believing that education and political advocacy were key to achieving equality. Garvey, on the other hand, focused on economic self-sufficiency and racial pride, encouraging black people to take control of their economic destinies. However, both men shared a deep commitment to African liberation, and their legacies continue to inspire movements for justice and equality today. The Pan-African Congresses were a series of meetings held between 1900 and 1945. They played a crucial role in shaping the Pan-African movement. The Congresses brought together people from across the African diaspora. They provided a forum for discussing common concerns and developing strategies for liberation. The first Pan-African Congress was held in London in 1900. It was organized by Henry Sylvester Williams, a Trinidadian lawyer. The Congress called for an end to colonial rule in Africa. It also demanded equal rights for black people in colonial societies. Subsequent congresses were held in Paris, Brussels, Lisbon, and New York City. These congresses expanded on the themes of the First Congress. They discussed issues such as education, economic development, and political representation. The Pan-African Congresses helped to raise awareness of the plight of Africans under colonial rule. They also fostered a sense of solidarity among people of African descent. The Congresses laid the groundwork for the anti-colonial struggles that would erupt after World War II. Section 5. A Shift in Tide. The 1945 Manchester Congress. The 1945 Manchester Congress was a watershed moment in the Pan-African movement. It was a pivotal event that brought together key figures from across the African diaspora and the continent itself. This Congress was not just another meeting, it was a declaration of intent and a call to action. It marked a significant shift in leadership from the African diaspora to Africans themselves. For the first time, Africans were taking the reins, asserting their right to self-determination and leadership in the fight against colonialism. The Congress was held in Manchester, England, just months after the end of World War II. The timing was crucial, as the world was reeling from the war's devastation, and the call for freedom and independence resonated more strongly than ever. Kwame Nkrumah, the future president of Ghana, played a key role in organizing the Congress. His vision and leadership were instrumental in bringing together diverse voices and uniting them under a common cause. Nkrumah and other African leaders were determined to take control of their own destiny. They were resolute in their belief that Africans should lead the charge for their own liberation. They were no longer content with simply demanding an end to colonial rule. They wanted to actively shape their future, to build nations that reflected their values, cultures, and aspirations. They wanted to create a united and independent Africa. This vision of unity was not just about political independence, but also about economic and social cohesion. The Manchester Congress called for the immediate end of colonialism in Africa. This was a bold and uncompromising stance, reflecting the urgency and determination of the leaders present. It also called for the creation of a United States of Africa. This idea was revolutionary, envisioning a continent where borders were less significant than the shared goals of freedom and prosperity. The Congress adopted a more radical tone than previous Congresses. The speeches and resolutions were filled with a sense of urgency and a call for immediate action. It reflected the growing frustration of Africans with colonial rule. The people were tired of waiting and were ready to take bold steps towards their liberation. The 1945 Manchester Congress marked a turning point in the Pan-African movement. It was a moment when the call for freedom became a roar that could not be ignored. It signaled the beginning of the end of European colonialism in Africa. The momentum generated by this Congress would fuel the decolonization movements that swept across the continent in the following decades. Section 6, World Wars and Awakening Seeds of Independence. The fight for freedom was far from over. Across continents, people were rising up, demanding their rights and asserting their identities. It was a time of great turmoil, but also of immense hope. Leaders emerged with a vision that transcended borders and cultures. Their dreams of a better world inspired millions. They spoke of unity, peace, and a future where every individual could thrive. The path to unity was not easy, and it required immense sacrifice and unwavering determination. But step by step, the world moved closer to a shared understanding. Together, we began to see the possibility of a united future. Africa's fight for freedom was long and hard. The journey towards independence was filled with struggles, sacrifices, and unwavering determination. For decades, African nations were under the yoke of colonial rule, their resources exploited and their people subjugated. The dream of freedom seemed distant, but the spirit of resistance was never extinguished. For many years, Europe controlled Africa, taking its resources and treating its people unfairly. The colonial powers imposed their will, extracting valuable minerals, crops, and labor, often with little regard for the well-being of the local populations. The exploitation was systematic and brutal, leaving deep scars on the continent. This was a very bad time. Families were torn apart, cultures were suppressed, and traditional ways of life were disrupted. The colonial rulers enforced harsh laws and used violence to maintain control. The people of Africa endured immense suffering, but their spirit remained unbroken. But even in bad times, people want to be free. The desire for self-determination and autonomy grew stronger with each passing year. Brave men and women rose up to challenge the colonial powers, organizing protests, strikes, and uprisings. They risked their lives for the dream of a free Africa. All over Africa, people wanted to control their own lives. The call for independence echoed from the deserts of the Sahara to the rainforests of the Congo. Leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta, and Patrice Lumumba inspired millions with their vision of a liberated continent. The movement for independence was unstoppable. They didn't want to be ruled by other countries. The people of Africa demanded the right to govern themselves, to make their own decisions, and to shape their own destinies. The struggle for independence was not just a political battle. It was a fight for dignity and respect. From big cities to small villages, everyone started to feel the same way. The movement for independence united people from all walks of life. Farmers, workers, students, and intellectuals all joined hands in the fight for freedom. The sense of solidarity and shared purpose was palpable. The fight wasn't just about who was in charge. It was about reclaiming their identity and heritage. The people of Africa sought to revive their cultures, languages, and traditions that had been suppressed under colonial rule. The struggle for independence was also a cultural renaissance. It was about being proud of who they were and making their own choices. The journey to independence was long and arduous, but it was driven by an unyielding belief in the right to self-determination. As the colonial era came to an end, a new chapter in Africa's history began, marked by hope, resilience, and a renewed sense of pride. People resisted the European rulers in different ways. They used both peaceful and violent methods to show their defiance. Some communities chose to negotiate and use diplomacy, while others took up arms and fought bravely against the invaders. The spirit of resistance was strong and varied across the continent. In the early 1900s, there were fights all over Africa. These battles were not just random acts of violence, but were organized efforts to reclaim autonomy and protect their lands. The resistance movements were often led by charismatic leaders who inspired their people to stand up against the colonizers. These fights, even though they were often stopped quickly, showed that people really wanted to be free. The determination and courage displayed by these communities were remarkable. They were willing to risk everything, including their lives, to fight for their freedom and preserve their way of life. The Herero people in German Southwest Africa, for example, fought hard against the Germans. Their resistance was a significant event in the history of African defiance. The Herero warriors used guerrilla tactics and intimate knowledge of the terrain to challenge the better-equipped German forces. Another big fight was the 𝒂𝒑𝒉𝒂𝒂 rebellion in Tanganyika. This uprising was a powerful demonstration of unity and resistance. The 𝒂𝒑𝒉𝒂𝒂 warriors came from various ethnic groups, united by a common goal to expel the German colonizers from their land. Led by 𝒂𝒊𝒕𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒅, the 𝒂𝒑𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒑 warriors believed their magic would protect them from German bullets. 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒅's leadership and the spiritual beliefs of the warriors played a crucial role in the rebellion. They believed that their sacred water, or 𝒪ģi, would turn the German bullets into water, making them invincible. Even though they lost, it showed how strong people can be when they work together. The 𝒂𝒑𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒅 rebellion, despite its tragic end, left a lasting legacy of resistance and unity. It demonstrated the power of collective action and the unyielding spirit of the African people. These early fights, even though they weren't always successful, were the start of much bigger fights for freedom later on. They laid the groundwork for future generations to continue the struggle for independence. The bravery and sacrifices of these early freedom fighters inspired many and set the stage for the eventual liberation of African nations from colonial rule. As time went on, new African leaders appeared. These weren't just fighters, but smart and inspiring people. They understood how hard it would be to get free from Europe. Men like Kwame Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta, Patrice Lumumba, and Julius Nyerere gave people hope. These leaders, many of whom had gone to school in Europe, knew they had to work together. They knew that being African made them strong. They traveled all over, talking to people and asking other countries for help. Their message was simple: Africa is for Africans. Kwame Nkrumah, a great leader from Ghana, became very important in the fight. He believed that all Africans should work together. He famously said, "Our freedom means nothing unless all of Africa is free." Everyone in Africa listened to Nkrumah. He gave them hope. Because of him, Ghana became free from Britain in 1957, the first country in sub-Saharan Africa to do so. This was a huge moment for Africa and the world. Jomo Kenyatta led Kenya's fight for freedom from Britain. Born in 1897, Kenyatta was a key figure in the struggle for independence. He was not only a political leader, but also a symbol of hope and resilience for many Kenyans. His journey was filled with challenges, including imprisonment by the British colonial government. Despite these obstacles, Kenyatta remained steadfast in his mission to see Kenya free from colonial rule. Kenyatta was a good speaker and a smart leader. His speeches were powerful and resonated deeply with the people. He had a unique ability to connect with his audience, making them feel heard and understood. His leadership was marked by his strategic thinking and his unwavering commitment to the cause of independence. Kenyatta's vision for Kenya was one of unity and progress, and he worked tirelessly to bring this vision to life. He brought his people together to fight against being ruled by Britain. Kenyatta's ability to unite diverse groups under a common cause was instrumental in the success of the independence movement. He encouraged peaceful protests and negotiations, believing that unity and solidarity were the keys to achieving freedom. His leadership inspired many to join the struggle, and his efforts laid the foundation for a new, independent Kenya. He believed so strongly in freedom that he inspired everyone in Kenya. Kenyatta's passion for independence was contagious. His unwavering belief in the right to self-determination motivated countless individuals to stand up and fight for their rights. His speeches and actions instilled a sense of pride and determination in the hearts of many Kenyans, driving them to work together towards a common goal. Kenya became free in 1963, and Kenyatta became its first president. This was a monumental achievement, marking the end of colonial rule and the beginning of a new era for Kenya. As president, Kenyatta focused on nation building and development, striving to create a prosperous and united country. His leadership during this critical period was crucial in shaping the future of Kenya. Patrice Lumumba was important in the Belgian Congo. Born in 1925, Lumumba emerged as a prominent leader in the fight for independence. He was a passionate advocate for the rights of the Congolese people and played a key role in the movement to end Belgian colonial rule. Lumumba's vision for Congo was one of unity, sovereignty, and social justice. He was a strong leader who spoke out against how badly Belgium treated the people of Congo. Lumumba's speeches were fiery and filled with conviction. He highlighted the injustices and exploitation faced by the Congolese under Belgian rule, calling for immediate and unconditional independence. His words resonated with many, sparking a wave of protests and demonstrations across the country. He said that Congo should be free right away. Lumumba's demand for immediate independence was a bold and courageous stance. He believed that the Congolese people had the right to govern themselves and determine their own future. His unwavering commitment to this cause made him a symbol of hope and resistance for many in Congo. Congo became free in 1960, and Lumumba was its first prime minister. This was a historic moment for Congo, marking the end of colonial rule and the beginning of a new chapter in the nation's history. As Prime Minister, Lumumba faced numerous challenges, but his leadership and vision were instrumental in guiding the country through its early days of independence. Because he fought so hard for freedom, he became a hero. Lumumba's legacy continues to inspire generations of Congolese and people around the world. His dedication to the cause of independence and his unwavering belief in the rights of his people have cemented his place in history as a true hero and a symbol of the struggle for freedom. In the 1950s and 1960s, lots of African countries fought for their freedom. A very important event was the 5th Pan-African Congress in Manchester in 1945. Important leaders like Hastings Banda, Kwame Nkrumah, and Jomo Kenyatta met there. They talked about how African countries should be free and work together. It helped them make plans for the future. The year 1960 was a big year. 17 African countries became free that year. This showed that the world was changing. The new countries had a lot of problems. Their economies weren't strong, and they had problems with different groups of people not getting along. It was hard to build a new country because of the damage caused by the European rulers. Even with these problems, many leaders tried to make things better. They wanted to build countries where everyone was equal and could take care of themselves. It wasn't easy, but they didn't give up. Just because the European countries left didn't mean everything was fixed. Many African countries had new problems. It was hard to keep things peaceful, and they still needed help from the European countries. The dream of a strong and united Africa, which the early leaders had, was still far away. But people still wanted a better future and didn't give up. The fight for true freedom wasn't over. The fight for freedom in Africa showed how brave and strong African people are. It changed Africa and inspired the whole world. The leaders who fought for freedom are remembered as heroes. They still inspire people today to fight for what is right. Africa is still working towards being truly free. It's hard, but there is still hope. The dream of a strong and united Africa is still important for the future. The 1900s were a time of huge change for Africa. The continent was undergoing a transformation that would shape its future in profound ways. From the bustling cities to the remote villages, every corner of Africa felt the winds of change. The early part of the century saw the continent largely under colonial rule, with European powers exerting their influence and control over African lands and people. It was a time of hardship, but also a time of hope. Despite the challenges, African communities remained resilient. They found ways to adapt and thrive even in the face of adversity. The spirit of hope was alive in the hearts of many as they dreamed of a better future for themselves and their children. This hope was the driving force behind many of the movements and changes that would come to define the century. Africa faced many problems, from being ruled by other countries to the Cold War. The geopolitical tensions of the Cold War had a significant impact on the continent as superpowers vied for influence. African nations found themselves caught in the crossfire, dealing with both internal and external pressures. The struggle for independence was a long and arduous journey marked by numerous conflicts and sacrifices. But through it all, the African people never gave up. They organized resistance movements, staged protests, and fought tirelessly. The determination and resilience of the African people were evident in their unwavering commitment to achieving freedom and justice. Their collective efforts laid the groundwork for the eventual liberation of many African nations. They fought for their freedom, their independence, and their right to decide their own future. The independence movements were characterized by a strong sense of unity and purpose. Leaders emerged who inspired their people to stand up against oppression and demand their rightful place in the world. These freedom fighters became symbols of hope and courage, leading their nations towards a new era of self-determination. This video explores some of the important events and ideas that shaped Africa in the 1900s. From the early struggles for independence to the significant milestones that mark the century, we will delve into the key moments that defined this transformative period. Understanding these events is crucial to appreciating the complex history and rich heritage of the African continent. We'll look at how the Cold War affected Africa, examining the ways in which global superpowers influenced the political landscape. The Cold War era brought about significant changes as African nations navigated the complexities of international relations. The impact of this period is still felt today, as the legacies of these geopolitical struggles continue to shape the continent. The fight against apartheid in South Africa, a struggle that captured the world's attention. The anti-apartheid movement was a powerful example of the fight for justice and equality. Leaders like Nelson Mandela became global icons, representing the enduring spirit of resistance against racial oppression. The eventual dismantling of apartheid was a monumental victory, not just for South Africa, but for humanity as a whole, and the rise of African art, culture, and music. The 20th century saw a cultural renaissance across the continent as African artists, musicians, and writers began to gain international recognition. This cultural explosion was a testament to the creativity and resilience of the African people. It also played a crucial role in shaping the global perception of Africa, showcasing the continent's rich and diverse heritage. We'll see how strong and creative the African people are. Their achievements in various fields, from science and technology to literature and sports, highlight the incredible potential and talent that exists within the continent. These accomplishments serve as a reminder of the indomitable spirit of the African people who continue to inspire the world with their resilience and ingenuity. This is a story of overcoming challenges. The journey of Africa in the 20th century is one of triumph over adversity. Despite facing numerous obstacles, the continent has made remarkable progress. The stories of individual and collective triumphs are a testament to the strength and determination of the African people. It's a story that still inspires the world today. The legacy of the 20th century continues to influence the present and future of Africa. The continent's journey serves as an inspiration to people around the globe, reminding us of the power of resilience, hope, and unity. As we look back on this transformative period, we celebrate the enduring spirit of Africa and its people. The Cold War was a big fight between the United States and the Soviet Union. This ideological battle spanned several decades, from the end of World War II in 1945 until the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. It was a period marked by intense rivalry, espionage, and a race for global influence. The two superpowers never engaged in direct military conflict with each other, but their competition played out in various regions around the world, including Africa. It was a fight about different beliefs, with capitalism on one side and communism on the other. The United States championed capitalism, promoting free markets and democratic governance, while the Soviet Union advocated for communism, emphasizing state control and a classless society. This ideological clash influenced not only the policies of the two superpowers, but also the lives of millions of people around the globe. Africa became a place where this fight played out, as both superpowers tried to gain control there. The continent, rich in natural resources and strategic locations, became a battleground for influence. Newly independent African nations found themselves caught in the crossfire, as the US and the USSR sought to expand their spheres of influence by supporting different factions and governments. The US and the USSR supported different sides in local fights, often giving weapons and money to opposing groups. This external support fueled conflicts and prolonged wars, as both superpowers were more interested in gaining an upper hand over each other than in the well-being of the African people. Military aid, financial assistance, and political backing were provided to various factions, leading to a complex web of alliances and enmities. This caused unrest and violence in many parts of Africa. Civil wars, coups, and insurgencies became common as different groups vied for power, with the backing of either the US or the USSR. The human cost was immense, with countless lives lost and communities torn apart. The social fabric of many African nations was severely damaged, and the scars of these conflicts are still visible today. Countries were forced to pick a side, and those that didn't often got caught in the middle. Neutrality was a difficult stance to maintain, as both superpowers exerted pressure on African nations to align with their respective ideologies. Those that tried to remain neutral often faced economic sanctions, political isolation, or even covert operations aimed at destabilizing their governments. The Cold War hurt Africa badly. The continent's development was stunted as resources were diverted to military spending and conflicts. Many African nations struggled to build stable governments and economies in the face of external interference and internal strife. The legacy of the Cold War is still felt in the form of ongoing conflicts, political instability, and economic challenges. It made existing problems worse, made conflicts last longer, and slowed down economic growth. The Cold War exacerbated issues such as poverty, corruption, and underdevelopment. The focus on military aid and political alliances often overshadowed efforts to address the root causes of these problems, leaving many African nations in a precarious situation. We can still see the effects of the Cold War in some parts of Africa today. The remnants of this ideological battle continue to influence political dynamics, economic conditions, and social structures. However, there are also signs of resilience and recovery as African nations work towards rebuilding and moving forward from this tumultuous period in their history. Apartheid was a system of keeping races separate. This policy of racial segregation was deeply entrenched in the fabric of South African society, affecting every aspect of life. It was a way of treating people differently because of their race, creating a society where the color of your skin determined your opportunities and rights. This system was the law in South Africa from 1948 to 1994, a period marked by intense racial discrimination and social injustice. Under apartheid, the white minority held all the power, controlling the government, the economy, and the military. Meanwhile, the black majority was stripped of basic human rights and freedoms. Black South Africans were treated as second-class citizens in their own country, forced to live in impoverished conditions with limited access to resources. They had to live in separate areas, use separate facilities, and go to separate schools. These segregated areas were often underdeveloped and lacked basic amenities. They weren't allowed to vote, own land, or even marry someone of a different race. The apartheid laws were strictly enforced, with severe penalties for those who defied them. Many countries around the world spoke out against apartheid and punished South Africa with economic sanctions and diplomatic isolation. The international community's condemnation was a crucial factor in the eventual dismantling of apartheid. Inside the country, more and more people fought against apartheid, led by groups like the African National Congress, or ANC. These brave individuals risked their lives to stand up against the oppressive regime, organizing protests, strikes, and acts of civil disobedience. Leaders like Nelson Mandela became symbols of the struggle for freedom, inspiring millions to join the fight for equality and justice. Their relentless efforts eventually led to the end of apartheid and the establishment of a democratic South Africa. Nelson Mandela was a very important leader in the fight against apartheid. He spent over 27 years in jail for his activism, but he never stopped believing in a free and democratic South Africa. Mandela became a world-famous hero, a symbol of the fight against injustice. When he was released from prison in 1990, people all over the world celebrated. In 1994, South Africa had its first fair elections. Nelson Mandela was elected the country's first black president, which meant the end of apartheid. Mandela's leadership and his message of forgiveness helped to fix the problems of the past. He showed the world that even when things are very bad, hope can win. Even though the Cold War and apartheid ended, Africa still had problems. There were still many fights between different groups within countries, often caused by different ethnicities, poverty, and fighting over resources. Civil wars in places like Somalia, Rwanda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo killed millions of people and forced many others to leave their homes. These conflicts also destroyed the economies and infrastructure of these countries. Many African countries struggled with poverty, owing money, and corruption. The effects of being ruled by other countries, like unfair trade and weak governments, continued to slow down progress. Even with all the problems, African art and culture grew in the 1900s. African artists, writers, and musicians became known around the world, sharing their unique views. From the colorful paintings of artists like Ella Natsui and Chris Ofili to the powerful writing of Chinua Achebe and Wole Soyinka, African art showed that stereotypes were wrong and offered new ways of looking at the world. African art often showed the struggles and victories of the continent. It gave a voice to those who didn't have one, celebrated being African, and explored ideas of colonialism, independence, and fairness. African music also became very popular around the world in the 1900s. With its catchy rhythms, emotional melodies, and strong lyrics, African music interested people everywhere. From the Afrobeat of Fela Kuti to the Mbaqanga of Miriam Makeba, African music went beyond countries and languages. It became a soundtrack for movements fighting for freedom and a celebration of African culture. African music was very important in shaping music around the world. Jazz, blues, reggae, and hip-hop all come from African music. Today, African music continues to change and inspire artists everywhere. The 1900s were a time of big change and difficulty for Africa. But it was also a time of amazing strength, creativity, and vibrant culture. African people overcame huge problems to fight for their freedom, their rights, and their place in the world. They used their voices and their art to speak out against injustice, celebrate their heritage, and give hope for the future. What happened in the 1900s reminds us of the strength and spirit of the African people. It continues to shape the continent and the world today. Now, in the 2000s, Africa has new opportunities and challenges. The continent has a young and growing population, lots of natural resources, and a vibrant cultural scene. There are still problems, but there is also a feeling of hope and possibility. African countries are working to overcome the problems of the past and build a better future for their people. The 2000s hold the promise of a new time for Africa, a time of peace, prosperity, and progress. A time where all Africans have the chance to be their best. The story of Africa is not finished, it's still being written. Africa's heartbeat is felt around the world. Its vibrant cultures, rich traditions, and dynamic rhythms resonate far beyond its borders. The continent's influence is woven into the very fabric of global society, touching every corner of the earth with its unique and powerful presence. Its ancient civilizations, like Egypt and Mali, gave amazing gifts of knowledge to everyone. The Great Pyramids of Giza stand as a testament to architectural genius, while the ancient manuscripts of Timbuktu hold secrets of early science, literature, and philosophy. The Mali Mosque of Djenné, with its intricate design, showcases the artistic and spiritual depth of African societies. From math to studying the stars, their discoveries shaped how we understand the world. Ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs reveal a complex system of writing and communication, while African stargazing scenes remind us of the continent's contributions to astronomy. African scholars, with their ancient texts, laid the groundwork for many modern scientific and intellectual pursuits. Africa's resources, from gold to diamonds, helped build global economies. The continent's wealth in natural resources has been a cornerstone of international trade for centuries. Gold mining in Africa has not only fueled local economies, but also played a significant role in global financial systems. Similarly, African diamond mines have been central to the jewelry industry, while bustling trade markets highlight the continent's economic vitality. Its music, art, and dance cross all borders, inspiring creativity everywhere. African musicians, with their traditional instruments, create sounds that resonate globally. Dancers performing intricate routines captivate audiences worldwide, and African art exhibitions showcase the continent's rich cultural heritage. These artistic expressions not only entertain but also inspire creativity and innovation across the globe. Africa's influence is clear. People of African descent, spread across the globe by history, have made societies richer and more diverse. Diverse communities in urban settings reflect the vibrant mix of cultures and traditions. Celebrations of African heritage in different countries highlight the enduring legacy of the African diaspora. Historical footage of African diaspora shows the resilience and contributions of African people throughout history, enriching societies with their unique perspectives and talents. African culture is a beautiful tapestry woven into the fabric of our world. African textile markets display a stunning array of colors and patterns, while artisans at work demonstrate the skill and creativity that define African craftsmanship. Cultural festivals celebrate the diversity and richness of African traditions, bringing people together in a shared appreciation of the continent's heritage. Africa's story isn't just about Africa, it's a story about all of us. African children holding global symbols represent the hope and potential of future generations. A diverse group of people holding hands symbolizes unity and shared humanity. African flags alongside other global flags remind us that Africa's story is intertwined with the world's story, reflecting our collective journey and shared destiny. Africa has faced many hard times. From the ancient days of its grand empires to the modern era, the continent has endured countless challenges. These challenges have shaped its people, its culture, and its history in profound ways. Colonization tried to silence its voice, take its resources, and change its history. But Africa survived. The colonial powers underestimated the resilience and strength of the African spirit. Despite the exploitation and oppression, the people of Africa held on to their identity and fought back in numerous ways. From the ancient empires that fought against invaders like the Kingdom of Kush and the Mali Empire, to the smaller communities that resisted domination. Africa's history is rich with stories of bravery and resistance. These empires were not just centers of power, but also hubs of culture, trade, and knowledge. To the freedom fighters who struggled for independence, Africa's spirit never broke. Leaders like Nelson Mandela, Kwame Nkrumah, and Jomo Kenyatta became symbols of the fight for freedom and justice. Their sacrifices and determination inspired millions and led to the eventual liberation of many African nations. The resistance movements of the past teach us important things. They show us the power of unity and the importance of standing up against injustice. These movements were not just about fighting against external oppressors, but also about building a sense of community and shared purpose among the people. They teach us about the strength of working together, the value of collaboration, and the impact of collective action. In many African societies, the concept of Ubuntu, the belief in a universal bond of sharing that connects all humanity, played a crucial role in fostering cooperation and mutual support. The importance of choosing our own path, making decisions that reflect our values and aspirations, and not letting external forces dictate our destiny. Traditional councils and community gatherings were often the places where important decisions were made, reflecting the democratic principles that have long been a part of African culture, and the power of believing in a better future. The youth of Africa, with their hopeful expressions and dreams, represent the continent's potential. Educational programs and community development projects are paving the way for a brighter tomorrow, showing that with the right support and opportunities, the future can be transformed. Africa's history shows us how strong the human spirit can be, even in the face of hardship. The resilience and achievements of its people are a testament to their enduring strength and determination. From cultural innovations to scientific discoveries, Africa has contributed immensely to the world. These lessons are still important today, reminding us to fight against unfairness. Modern social justice movements in Africa continue to draw inspiration from the past, advocating for rights and equality. The struggles of today are deeply connected to the historical battles fought by previous generations, and work for a world where everyone is treated equally. The vision of a just and equitable society is one that resonates across the continent. By learning from the past and working together, we can build a future where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. The end of colonial rule was a new beginning, not the end of the story. African nations started a new journey, learning how to govern themselves, building new systems, growing their economies, and dealing with the effects of colonialism became really important. This journey has been full of challenges. Political problems, unequal economies, and conflicts have tested the continent's strength. Outside forces still affect Africa's path, often holding it back. But even with these challenges, a spirit of determination remains, fueled by a deep belief in Africa's potential. Despite the difficulties, Africa's journey after colonialism is also a story of progress. Many countries have made big improvements in many areas. Democratic governments are growing stronger, with peaceful changes of power happening more often. Economic growth is getting faster in many parts of the continent thanks to new ideas, entrepreneurs, and smart investments. Africa's middle class is growing, and they're eager to help the continent develop. These successes, even though they're sometimes hidden by challenges, show us a glimpse of Africa's amazing potential. Section 5. Challenges on the horizon. Obstacles to Africa's advancement. Challenges still exist, and they need creative solutions and strong commitment. Poverty, sickness, and conflict still affect parts of the continent. Climate change is a huge threat, impacting farming, water, and how people make a living. Outside factors like unfair trade and the exploitation of resources still hold Africa back. Dealing with these challenges requires a plan with many parts, involving governments, communities, and international partners. It requires a commitment to social justice, economic empowerment, and protecting the environment. Section 6. Africa's future unfolding, a vision for the 21st century. As we step into the new millennium, Africa stands at the threshold of unprecedented transformation. The continent, rich in culture, history, and natural resources, is poised to redefine its future. Africa's future is full of possibilities. The energy and optimism of its youth are palpable, driving a wave of innovation and change. From bustling cities to serene villages, the spirit of progress is evident everywhere. The continent is about to change in a big way, driven by its young and energetic population, its many resources, and a collective ambition to rise above challenges. Young professionals are making strides in various fields, from technology to agriculture, while students are eager to learn and contribute to their communities and a renewed sense of purpose. Leaders and communities are coming together, fostering a sense of unity and collaboration that is essential for sustainable growth. Conferences and gatherings are becoming platforms for sharing ideas and building a shared vision. This vision is based on pan-Africanism, a belief in the power of unity and working together. The African Union and other regional bodies are playing pivotal roles in promoting peace, stability, and economic integration across the continent. It imagines an Africa without poverty, where everyone has access to good education, healthcare, and job opportunities. Modern schools are being built, healthcare facilities are improving, and farmers are adopting new techniques to increase productivity, where everyone has access to good education, healthcare, and job opportunities. Universities are nurturing the next generation of leaders, healthcare workers are dedicated to improving public health, and businesses are creating jobs and driving economic growth. It sees a continent leading the way in new technologies, with researchers and entrepreneurs at the forefront of innovation. Tech startups are emerging, bringing new solutions to old problems, and students are becoming proficient in digital skills, using its resources for sustainable development. Renewable energy projects like solar farms and wind turbines are harnessing the power of nature, while sustainable farming practices are ensuring food security and environmental conservation. This is an Africa ready to tell its own story. Through media, arts, and culture, Africans are sharing their narratives, celebrating their heritage, and showcasing their talents to the world, and take its rightful place on the world stage. At international summits and global forums, African leaders are advocating for their countries, forging partnerships and contributing to global discussions. This is the dawn of a new era for Africa, one filled with hope, resilience, and boundless potential. Section 7. Innovation and Technology Catalysts for Africa's Transformation. Technology is a powerful tool for change. All across Africa, we see how it can transform things. Mobile technology is connecting people, helping communities, and creating economic opportunities. Renewable energy projects are bringing light to homes, powering businesses, and fighting climate change. African innovators are creating solutions for the continent's unique challenges. From farming technologies that help grow more food to medical discoveries that save lives, Africa is using technology to make progress. Section 8. Global Collaboration. A bridge to Africa's brighter future. Africa's journey isn't a solo trip. Working together with the world is essential. Partnerships built on respect, shared responsibility, and a commitment to sustainable development are very important. Investing in Africa's people, supporting its institutions, and promoting fair trade are key steps. Tackling global challenges like climate change and pandemics requires everyone to work together. Africa's success is connected to the world's progress. Section 9. A continent reimagined, embracing Africa's potential. Africa is a continent on the rise. Its resilience, innovation, and determination are creating a brighter future. The world needs to forget its old ideas about Africa and embrace its potential. The story of Africa is changing. It's a story of strength, innovation, and endless possibilities. It's a story that needs to be heard, celebrated, and embraced. Africa's future is bright, and the world will be watching as it rises to meet its destiny.